Mr. Squidward, welcome to the night shift.
Hello, everyone, and pleasant good evening to everybody out there on this fine Thursday night. Welcome to the night shift. I'm Loro Antonio, and guess who's back on the night shift with me? But I had a series of rotating guests join me. Callan was filling in for you when I did this last time, and Isaiah, welcome back to the night shift, my man.
Oh, thank you, Loro. It feels so great to be back. I missed doing this show and being on the MI6 Sports Network for a long, long time. So it's great to be back. We have a lot of stuff to talk about tonight, but the topic that I'm really, really wanting to talk about is that Lakers game. And I cannot believe the Lakers lost this game. I got a lot of stuff I gotta get off my chest. So, to the folks out there, get your popcorn ready.
Yes, sir. Let's get that popcorn ready. So the Lakers just, however, lost to the Oklahoma City Thunder for the second time this season, and they lost by the final of 107-104. That fourth quarter, towards that ending, Isaiah, I'll tell you what, the Lakers looked sloppy. They looked lackadaisical. They did not defend well. And talk about Lou Dort being the player of the game in this one. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander looked tremendously good in this game today. And then I also want to point out that I think that OKC's not a good team, but they somehow have the Lakers number, which is kind of disappointing.
Yeah, I don't know where to start. The Lakers should all be embarrassed. They should be ashamed of themselves because there's no way that you should be losing this game. Absolutely no way. You're up 17 at one point. I think they were even up 19 at one point in the second half or in the second quarter, and you just blow it. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the Thunder have with the Los Angeles Lakers. You should not be losing to this team. The Oklahoma City Thunder, their record is 2-6. Their 2 wins are over you. You are a team that is supposed to be in the running for an NBA championship, and you lose to a team that is in the running for a lottery pick. So the Lakers, they should absolutely be ashamed of themselves. I thought the reason why the Lakers lost in the end was because there was too much standing around. There was no ball movement. There was no bullying your way in the paint like you did for the first couple of quarters. Everybody was settling for jumpers, and this is the problem, Loro, that's always making me pissed off whenever I watch Lakers game, is because you have Anthony Davis, you have DeAndre Jordan, you have 2 monsters in the paint, and you have Russell Westbrook, one of the greatest point guards to ever play in the NBA. And for some reason, you settle for jumpers when that's not your strength. Your strength is bully ball. Bully your way by teams. Against the Warriors. Why did you lose to the Warriors? It's because they started settling for jumpers. They started settling for threes. You don't want to do that. That is your weakness. Russell Westbrook's not that great of a three-point shooter. Anthony Davis is not that great of a three-point shooter. Bazemore is off and on when it comes to three-point shooting. Avery Bradley's all right. Rondo sucks at shooting. Malik Monk is inconsistent. What you do best is playing bully ball and getting into the paint and scoring over teams. And the Lakers went away from that as late in the third quarter, and in that fourth quarter, they panicked and they started to settle for jumpers, and this is exactly why this team is going to continue to lose if they do that. They're just not that great of a jump shooting team. I thought that the Lakers with AD, Jordan, and Russell Westbrook, I thought they should have pounded the paint even more. The Thunder are not a great team defending the paint. You should have attacked the guy that they have in the interior, and I just don't know why the Lakers didn't do that tonight. And like I said earlier, I don't know why the Lakers just continuously stand around. Like, this is why the Warriors have won championships. This is why the Spurs win championships in the past. This is why the Milwaukee Bucks won a championship. This is why the Phoenix Suns are very successful. It's because they move the ball. Everybody's moving around. Everybody is not just standing and watching and waiting for AD or waiting for Russ or waiting for LeBron to do their thing. There's player movement, there's ball movement, and that's how you're supposed to win in the NBA. And Loro, imagine if the Lakers, with all the talent that they have, instead of standing around, they were all moving around and cutting and back and forth, stuff like that. And imagine all the open looks that they would get if there was more ball movement and more player movement in this offense. It was a very embarrassing loss for the Lakers. It was a very disgusting loss for the Lakers. And, you know, in that last possession when Westbrook goes out there and tries to, you know, hit a three to try to tie the game, I'm sitting back and I'm just like, what are you doing, Russell Westbrook? You got to have better vision than that, because you had Austin Reeves who was trailing you. You could have dished it out behind you instead of driving into the teeth of the defense and trying to hit that three. You had Reeves wide open, trailing. You could have bounced passes to him behind the back pass, or you could have kicked it to the other side and Avery Bradley was wide open. And Austin Reeves right now and Avery Bradley, they're one of your better three-point shooters. And I trust those guys shooting the three ball late in the game over Russell Westbrook shooting the three ball late in the game. So I would have done that if I was Russell Westbrook. I was incensed that he did not do that. But having spewed all the negative stuff about the Los Angeles Lakers and all like ripping them to shreds, I think the bright spot in this game, despite AD getting 29 points, 18 rebounds, that was a great sign to see, but I think he needs to bully his way more late in the games. I think the bright spot, not just for this game, Loro, but for the entire season, I think you know where I'm going to go with this, is Austin Reeves. You know, I've been really high on this kid ever since the preseason. I said that this kid should get more playing time because he's like one of the Lakers' only players that can shoot the basketball. He's one of the Lakers' players that can defend at a really high level. And when you look at him playing on the floor, every time he comes in, he does something really well, or he does something really great offensively. He does something really great defensively. He's a guy that can catch and shoot in the corner. He's a guy that can catch and shoot, knock down the triples like he did tonight. I believe he knocked down 2 triples. He was like 2 for 4, shot 50% from three. Really great shooting percentage from three-point land. But most importantly, he gives effort. He plays with heart. He plays with passion. And every time you watch him play on the court, you see that he's giving you effort. He's giving you all-out effort and being very tenacious on defense. So I think the Lakers, you have to keep Austin Reeves in the rotation, even when THT returns, even when Kendrick Nunn returns, even Ellington, when he starts to get back into the fold. You have to keep Reeves in the rotation, because this kid, I'm telling you right now, this kid, a lot of people are comparing him to Alex Caruso. I'm going to take it a step further. I think he could become Tyler Hero 2.0 with the way that he shoots the three and with the way that he plays defense. He's just tenacious. He gives effort on the court. And Vogel, you got to find a way to get this guy on the floor, because he's a lockdown defender, and you need that right now.
Absolutely, you do. I mean, my thoughts on this is that Isaiah, I could agree with you about saying Austin Reeves being like Tyler Hero. I think that he is a player that could shoot the ball. He had a decent performance, but talk about Carmelo Anthony scoring 21 points. Anthony Davis led the way with 29 points and 18 rebounds. And then Russell Westbrook with 27 points and 6 rebounds. But also to our comments section, Christy Wilson chimes in and says hello. And then Nathaniel McCourt says hello. He also thinks that the reason why the Lakers are losing games to the Oklahoma City Thunder is chemistry and injuries. And then Big B, Brandon Herrera, also said the Lakers blew a 19-point lead, in which they did. I just thought that their performance in the second half wasn't good again against a team that they should be beating. And to me, that's just disappointing if I were the Lakers. I really think that the Lakers need to find a way to bounce back against the Portland Trailblazers on Saturday. What are your thoughts heading into that game on Saturday?
With LeBron out, and we're going to talk about LeBron's injury later on in the show, but with LeBron out, it's going to be really tough, because I know the Lakers have AD, I know they have Russ, and they can match up with the Blazers star power wise, but I'm worried about the perimeter defense, Loro. You've let Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's a fantastic player, but you let Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gash you in back-to-back meetings. I mean, SGA, like I said, he's a fine player, but he's nowhere near Damian Lillard or CJ McCollum. And I just think the Lakers, they got to shore that up. You know, you're going to be fine when it comes to interior defense with Davis, with Dwight Howard, with DeAndre Jordan. You're going to be fine over there. But it's about the perimeter defense. And right now, when you look at the Lakers' perimeter defense, who on the Lakers really plays defense in the perimeter? Kent Bazemore, like he's had some moments. I know Ellington was coming back tonight. He was decent. Malik Monk, I like Malik Monk. He's a really good offensive player, but he's getting gashed defensively by the opposing team. You know, the opposing team just puts their best offensive guard on him, and he just doesn't have any answers against those guys. I mean, Reeves, I don't think Loro, as much as we have raved about Austin Reeves' performance, I don't know if you could put Reeves against Damian Lillard because I like Reeves defensively, but he needs to bulk up. That's his problem. If he bulks up, he's going to be a great player. But with Reeves right now, he's super skinny. You know, he's like Brandon Ingram as a rookie. Teams like he's got the length. He's great at defense. He's got a great IQ. But teams are just backing him down and bullying him their way to the paint by him because he's just not that big. So I think you have to play Avery Bradley more against Damian Lillard because he's a tremendous defender. Bazemore, you could have him against McCollum. But I'm worried about the Lakers' perimeter defense. I don't know how they're going to hold up against those great guards that Portland has.
Absolutely. That's a concern. The Blazers are 3-5, and then the Lakers are 5-4. That's got to be a concern if I were the Lakers. So I have their upcoming schedule coming up. They got the Blazers on Saturday night. And then on Monday, they take on the high-powered but the young and gunning Charlotte Hornets. They're going to be a challenge for the Lakers. And that matchup to me is concerning because you have LaMelo Ball, you have Miles Bridges, and if the Lakers can't guard them, they're in for a long night against the Charlotte Hornets team. And then they play the Heat on Wednesday, and the Miami Heat are not easy to beat. And then the Timberwolves are iffy. They're 50-50. You just have to find a way. If you can't beat OKC, this is concerning for the Lakers. You can't. They have to find a way to beat Portland. They got to beat Charlotte. They got to beat the Heat, and then they got to beat the T-Wolves. And Stephen Wang, if you're listening, the T-Wolves are 50-50.
Well, I agree with that. I'm worried about the Heat. I don't know how the Lakers' perimeter defense is going to hold up against them. The Wolves might be a challenge because Russell, against our weak perimeter defense, he could go off. I think we'll be okay in the middle, but I agree with you, Loro. The Hornets are a team that I'm kind of scared about because they have really good guard play. And you've seen the Lakers this season when you have a team that has really good guard play, no matter the record, no matter the projection, they always come out and beat the Lakers. And we saw it tonight. SGA, fantastic performance as the Lakers just can't guard him. And then you have other guys like Jalen Green, who was fantastic, but we got lucky in that game because we have more experience and we were able to bully them in the middle. I think the guard play for the Lakers really frustrate me.
They do too. I mean, I really want them to not be lazy on defense here. And then there was an example. I was playing NBA 2K with Lakers and Rockets. They were up 21. And then the Houston Rockets, however, found a way to get back into the game. And I was like, why? I mean, I was like, really? Rockets? Come on now. But in real life, I mean, I think the Lakers need to pick it up. I think this schedule coming up for them is going to be harder. I think they have a back-to-back at home next weekend. They take on the Spurs. And the Spurs, I think the Spurs, you got to beat the Spurs. They're not off to a good start right now. And then the Bulls, you and I have talked about a lot, and you and I are very high on the Bulls. They are playing hot right now.
Frank Vogel, if you're watching this video right now, give Austin Reeves more minutes. I'm serious. Give him more minutes. I'm not saying the other guys can't play. I'm saying the rookie gives you passion. He gives you intensity. Loro, I don't know if you noticed this, but what I've noticed from watching Reeves play on the court is he looks like he's playing every game like it's Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Do you see like every time he's on the court, how he's like he's tying up with other players. He's harassing them on defense. Like that's what the Lakers need. That's what LeBron and all these guys, all these veterans need to learn. I know it's the regular season, and the regular season doesn't really mean much right now. But a rookie, is giving you that much intensity. It's amazing. So Reeves definitely deserves more minutes. But I think the Lakers, it's going to be tough. It definitely will be tough. But definitely right now, I think lineup-wise, Bazemore, honestly, I don't know if you start Bazemore. I think Bazemore is like okay defensively, but the problem with Bazemore is that he's getting beaten by a lot of these like fast guards that are just running by him. So maybe you need some young legs to keep up with those guys.
Absolutely. Then Callan Max Sports says, well, what do you know? Isaiah is saying, he plays for the Lakers. That's kind of a funny comment right there by our man Callan. And thanks for tuning in, my man.
Shout out to you, Callan. Hopefully you enjoyed your Conference USA basketball game tonight.
All right. And then with LeBron missing 1 to 2 weeks with an abdominal strain, my thoughts is that, will the Lakers be fine without him? Yeah, as long as you have AD and Westbrook and then Carmelo off the bench. But I kind of feel like that with LeBron James out, you got to start Carmelo Anthony. I want Carmelo Anthony in the lineup. Now with LeBron hurt, I want him in the lineup over Kent Bazemore.
I think the Lakers, if you asked me last year, I would have said the Lakers are in trouble because they only have AD left, and AD, like, it seems like every game he almost has like a severe injury. But I think with LeBron missing 1 to 2 weeks, I think that it would be good because for a lot of the young
Isaiah.
Oh crap!
Where do you get Conference USA from a exhibition game?
Oh, Callan, I didn't think you were going to hop on there.
Where do you get Conference USA from a Division II exhibition game?
Well, me and Loro are going to be talking about the Conference USA in a bit, so that's what I kind of got too focused right there.
No.
Oh, Callan, you're just being silly, my man. So he just wanted to hop on there. So what were you saying about LeBron James missing?
Well, I think the Lakers will be fine because they have Russ now who can handle the basketball and run the offense. It also gives the Lakers young players more opportunities to play more minutes and also try to get themselves ready for when the real season comes, and that is the postseason. I think Ellington, Monk, Reeves, Bradley, Bazemore, and all these guys, they'll get like an extra bump in minutes. And I think that's good for them as LeBron, because, we know what LeBron's going to bring. LeBron doesn't have to play every night. We don't really care for the regular season right now. We care more about the postseason, and it's about getting ready for the postseason. I know we're only in November, but still, you got to build that chemistry. And I think it will be good for all these players, these new players that we have, like Carmelo as well, add him to the mix. They can boost their confidence, and they can, try to get some chemistry as well.
Yeah, I think that the Lakers need to find that. And then I expect the Lakers to find a way to bounce back against Portland. Portland's 3-5. I like what Chauncey Billups is doing up in Portland. And I think that the Blazers should be better than 3-5.
Yeah, they are one of the disappointments of this season because I had bigger expectations for the Blazers. I think they would have been, for me, I think I had them as a play-in or whatever. I think I had them as a play-in, but I don't know what's wrong with them. And it just seems like they're just not in sync at the moment.
Yes, they're not in sync, but I think the Lakers have a very tough schedule coming up. I mean, you get Charlotte, Miami, Minnesota, and then San Antonio is probably going to be the easiest out of them. Chicago, I think, is going to be the hardest. And then the Lakers have to go on the road to play Milwaukee. That's not going to be very easy if the Lakers.
You need LeBron for that game. You need LeBron from Milwaukee. That's because you can't have Giannis going up against who would be the Lakers small forward at this point? Kent Bazemore, like that wouldn't be unfair.
Yeah, absolutely. But now let's talk about some football here. Obviously, I watched part of that Thursday night game. I saw the Mika Hines touchdown. I'm not really on the Mike White hype train, but I'll tell you what here. I really think that the Colts needed that win. The Jets, they played hard for Salah. I think this Jets team, when they get Zach Wilson back, I think Zach Wilson's going to look healthier and stronger. And I can't wait to see him back out on the field. Although since my Patriots played him the last time, I feel sorry for him that he's hurt. But I know that Zach Wilson is that man for the Jets.
Loro, my thoughts on this game was I didn't even watch, or I watched like little parts of it, honestly. Like it was 35-10 at halftime. Am I correct? It was like something like that. It was like a blowout at halftime. That Loro, and I'm being serious. I told Ace this on Kicking It with Isaiah and Ace. Make sure you guys go check that out tonight after this show is over. But Loro, I legit watched diving over this second half. I turned on diving over of this football game. That's how boring this football game was. It was a total snooze fest of a second half. I mean, when the Colts were up 28-10, I was just like, yeah, the Jets can't get anything going offensively. Colts are smothering them. Colts are playing really well. They're going to run away with this. It was not even a close game. The reason why the score seems like it's close is because the Jets in garbage time made a run in the second half to keep it close. But, I mean, it was not a close game whatsoever. It was a blowout. Mike White, I'm not on the hype train at all like you. I think that Mike White, he's an okay backup, but I kind of view it as what my guy Nick Mullins went through. You know, Nick Mullins, if you guys remember, against the Raiders, Nick Mullins, if I'm not mistaken, Nick Mullins, I believe, threw for like 400 yards against the Raiders, and everybody was like, oh my God, Nick Mullins is the next great quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. You have Joe Montana, Steve Young, Colin Kaepernick, Alex Smith. Throw Nick Mullins into the mix. And I was one of those people, and I bought a Nick Mullins jersey, and, you know, 2 weeks later, after the Niners bye week, Nick Mullins slinks up the joint on Monday Night Football against the New York Giants. So I think that's kind of what Mike White is on right now. I just think that the reason why he had a lot of success, because first of all, it's the Bengals defense. Anybody can score on the Bengals defense. And secondly, teams didn't have any film on him. Like, we didn't even know who he was until 2 weeks ago. So, and now they have film on him, and that's why the Colts adjusted in this football game. But, you know, Mike White, he had his moment. He had his opportunity, but I think the bigger story of this game, Loro, was about the pathetic defense of the Jets shown as the Jets or the Colts running backs, really went off against the Jets D. I mean, you had Jonathan Taylor, fine running back. He's a fine running back from Callan's Wisconsin Badgers, and he went off for 172 yards in 19 carries, averaging 10 yards a carry. Like he looked like Barry Sanders out there. And the other guy, Himes, if I'm saying his name correctly, Himes, he averaged like 10 yards a carry as well. So the Jets' run defense is horrible. The Jets, unfortunately, are going to be once again getting a top 5 pick this year. That's how it is. And I feel bad for a lot of Jets fans because they deserve better.
They sure do deserve better, but I want to make a point here. For the schedule makers out there, don't put the Giants and Jets on Monday night and Thursday night games. Nobody wants to watch you on those primetime games. It is a boring game every time.
Exactly. Nobody wanted. This is why I didn't even watch the second half, because I didn't want to tune into the game in the first place. Because you're looking like Colts and Jets. Really, you don't have any other better matchup that you could put. Maybe you could put like Packers and Chiefs or whatever, or Niners and Cardinals, like something that would be better. Come on, NFL, man.
We want better games than prime time.
Yeah, no disrespect to those teams.
Don't put the Jets in prime time anymore. They're rebuilding. The Giants, I don't see them getting a future game in prime time. Maybe the Eagles, because I like Jalen Hurts. But Anyways, let's talk about some Week 9 games to look forward to. I'm going to start with talking about my game, the New England Patriots taking on the Carolina Panthers. Both teams are 4-4. One of these teams is going to be up there at 500. One of these teams is going to go over 500. And the Patriots, they're a team that is looking to get up to 500, even though that they don't have the best of weapons, except for Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. Jacoby Myers has been good. The Patriots defense has had its ups and downs. Mac Jones has been the real deal for the Patriots, but I urge for Bill Belichick to give him more weapons in the offseason, but that's going to save that for another topic. But for Sam Darnold, he's about to get exposed by Bill Belichick again.
For me, Loro, I have a couple of games that I'm looking forward to for Week 9. Number one, I'm definitely looking forward to, believe it or not, the Bills and the Jaguars. And when you look at that game,
God, that is going to be a blowout. Nobody's going to want to watch that.
Well, here's why I say this. It's because Trevor Lawrence was humble last week. He was humbled against Seattle. Now you're facing a Bills defense, which is not really that good. I know they had a good performance against the Dolphins, but they've been like in the middle of the NFL for me all season long. So Trevor Lawrence, it's in Jacksonville. You got humbled by a Seattle defense that is not that good. It's time to bounce back. It's time to show why you were the number one pick. And I think he has to show that because the Bills just has been giving up a lot of yards. They've been giving up a lot of points, and they just have been not that good. You know, I'm not saying that they're like terrible like the Jets, but they're just not that good. So Trevor Lawrence this is a prove-it game for Trevor Lawrence. He needs to show why he was the number one pick in this game. I'm not saying the Jaguars are going to win, but this is a massive prove-it game for Trevor Lawrence. The other games I'm looking forward to is definitely, I would say, Packers and Chiefs, because Jordan Love's first start going up against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, their defensive issues have been well documented all season long. The Chiefs defense is just not that good at the moment. And Jordan Love's his first start. He could look, he could come in and look like he doesn't belong in the NFL, or he could come in and just carve up that Chiefs defense. And then, Loro, we're going to have a real quarterback controversy in Green Bay, because if Jordan Love balls out against the Chiefs and he somehow, some way goes into Arrowhead and wins that football game, then the Packers, I think, will have an easier time of letting Aaron Rodgers leave after this season. So that's a big game for the Packers against the Chiefs on Sunday. Cowboys and Broncos, like Christy mentioned, another one that I'm definitely looking forward to, since the Cowboys are red hot right now. They just beat the Vikings. I believe they're 7-1 right now. The Denver Broncos, don't write the Denver Broncos off just yet. They are 4-4. They had a big season-saving win against the Washington football team. Their defense, I know, just lost Von Miller, but the Denver Broncos, I think that the Denver Broncos could somehow, some way, I'm not saying they're going to pull this off, but I think the Broncos could hang in there and make it interesting, especially late. But I know Dak Prescott is going to play, so that's going to be a big challenge for them. And last but not least, Niners and Cardinals. Not because I'm going to be there working that game. Thankfully, hopefully Callan's not watching, because I don't want him to expose me. But, Loro, this last time I worked at Levi's, it was terrible weather. I felt like that I thought I was gonna get swept away out there in the hellish wind and the rain. Like, it was terrible. It was monsoon-like weather, something that I really do not want to look forward to working ever again. But it's gonna be nice weather. Kyler Murray hasn't practiced all week. He has an ankle sprain. We don't know if he's gonna play. And also DeAndre Hopkins has like a hamstring injury. Hamstring injuries are very, very tricky. So, and if the Cardinals are missing their top two players on offense up against the Niners, who are coming off a big win against the Chicago Bears, a season-saving win, I could see the Niners pulling it off in what I think is the Niners' biggest game of the season, given the fact that if you win this game, Loro, you're going to be 4-4, back at 500, only 2 games back of both the Rams and the Cardinals in the NFC West. But if you lose this game, you're going to be 3-5. You're going to be 3-5, and you're going to be You're going to be 3-5. You're going to be 3 games back of the NFC West. It's a huge swing. You need to win this game if you're the San Francisco 49ers.
You absolutely do. You're absolutely right about that. What are your thoughts on the Patriots and Panthers game? Do you think that this could be another must-win game for the Patriots?
I think it is, because you're playing the Panthers who have struggled after their 3-0 start, and I just think that if you're the Patriots, this is a perfect game for you, because you have the Panthers who are struggling on offense. Their defense has not been good as of late, and the Patriots, I feel like, are starting to hit their stride right now in the past couple of games. So this is a big game for the New England Patriots as well as the Carolina Panthers, because there's also rumors that I don't know how true these rumors are that Matt Rule, who was already Matt Rule could replace Joe Brady as a play caller if the offense stinks it up in this football game. So who knows? There's could be a lot of people that is on the line in this game.
There is a lot on the line here. And then talk about Sunday Night Football with the Rams and the Titans. I can't wait to see Von Miller's Rams debut. But for the Titans, are they going to have a hard time offensively? Do you think that Ryan Tannehill is going to be throwing the ball downfield to A.J. Brown and Julio Jones? And is the run game going to be a problem for the Titans?
The run game will be a problem. This Derrick Henry, we talked about this in Wild Sports Talk on Monday. That was a big blow, a big blow. And I think if you're a Titans fan, unfortunately, I think you should take your white flag and wave it on the season, because your season's done. Now with Ryan Tannehill, I just don't trust Ryan Tannehill to be able to put the Titans on his back and lead them to the division title and to the playoffs. Ryan Tannehill has always been that game manager, Alex Smith type quarterback, where you have to have a great run game, and he benefits off of that. Now the run game is gone. Henry gone, goodbye. Now more attention will be on A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. The defense is not that good. So unfortunately, I think the Titans season is over, and I think the AFC South is now in the hands of the Indianapolis Colts.
You'll never. We'll see. I mean, the Colts, good win for them. They're getting their season back on track, and Tennessee could still be in second place, but I still think they could be 9-8 by the end of the season without Derrick Henry. I really think that is a huge blow to the Tennessee Titans. And then when the Bears take on the Steelers on Monday night, we're going to talk more about this with Adam Barber tomorrow on Wild Sports Talk to preview that game. Do you think that Justin Fields can beat Ben Roethlisberger? I would want to see that.
Going up against that Pittsburgh defense with T.J. Watt and all those monsters up front in the cold, I have a hard time seeing it. I really do. I just think that I like Justin Fields. I think he's a great quarterback. Callum McClure and his Bears are really fortunate to have Justin Fields as their quarterback. But I just think Ben Roethlisberger, Ben Roethlisberger is not having like the greatest season in the world, but he's a game manager now, and he's not losing the game. He's not losing the game, and I don't know if the Bears will have Khalil Mack, Loro?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not really too high on the Bears, but I'll tell you what, I am a Justin Fields fan, and I think that he's going to turn around that offense. I think he's going to give the Bears new life on offense. But I just think that there are other areas on the team that really concern me.
Yeah, I just think that for the Bears, Justin Fields is good. The offense is good, or it's decent, but you have Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy's calling the plays, and come on, Loro. We both know that Matt Nagy, we both want him out anyway, so I just don't see the Bears winning this game because of the environment, the cold weather, plus the Pittsburgh defense, really good defense. And if the Bears don't have Khalil Mack, like we saw last week when the Niners went into Chicago and rolled the Bears are going to have a hard time getting to Ben Roethlisberger and stopping Najee Harris.
Absolutely. Now on to college football. So Callan will be with us shortly to talk about Conference USA. So let's start with USC star wide receiver Drake London. He fractured his right ankle and had to be carted off the field during USC's win this past Saturday versus Arizona. London was a projected first-round pick in this upcoming NFL draft and was a stalwart in that Trojan offense. How big of a blow is this to USC? Like, when I read this, that is a big blow to USC.
This is a massive blow to USC because when you look at it, he was the guy in their offense. When you look at the receivers, it was the Drake London show. Keaton Slovis kept throwing the football to Drake London. Drake London is I believe, a 6'5" or 6'6" wide receiver who, he's a basketball star. He plays on the USC basketball team, or he did before he quit basketball to focus on football. He's a guy. He's like Mike Evans. He's a guy you just throw the football up and he will go and get it. And I believe he had I think he was breaking records at USC. I don't know what the exact records. I'm going to have to look it up, but he was breaking records at USC, and the season was only halfway done, and he was projected to be a first-round pick. So it's definitely a huge blow to USC. USC already is 4-4. They have Arizona State. I have Drake London's stats, Loro. He had 88 catches, 1,084 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He's an absolute monster, and you're losing a big time production from Drake London. The other receivers that they have are just freshmen and guys that just aren't proven. So, like Christy said, if we could pull up that comment, he was probably USC saving grace. Yes, that's why USC fans tuned in, because the season's lost anyway since you fired your head coach. He was their saving grace. It's a shame that he's gone. I don't know how this is going to affect his draft status, since now you broke an ankle. Teams are going to be wary of you health-wise. Are you ready? Because, you guys, how important ankles and Achilles are to wide receivers. And I don't know, his stock might have just dipped just like that. But for USC, it's a big blow. It's a shame that he's gone. And I don't even know if the Trojans are going to make a bowl game, to be honest with you, with how they have Arizona State, UCLA, BYU, and Cal coming up. And they need to win 6 games, which means they have to win 2 more games, because they have 4 right now. They have to win 2 out of those 4 games to get in. And Arizona State, BYU, and UCLA are, I believe, all ranked in the top 25, and USC has struggled mightily against ranked teams.
They have. You're absolutely right about that. But now let's talk about with Florida have gotten blown out last weekend by Isaiah's Georgia Bulldogs, and currently struggling at 4-4, and also struggling in recruiting as well. Should Florida head coach Dan Mullen be on the hot seat, or should he be given a pass this year? To me, it's hard to say. He could be fired or he could not. What about you, Isaiah?
Folks, pretend this pen is a cigar. I am extremely delighted and excited right now because, Dan Mullen. And I'm so glad that Callan's not in here because he doesn't have to roast me for whatever is going on. But Dan Mullen... I was going to say,
ask
first
and
of all,
you shall receive, Isaiah.
We don't condone drug use on the MI6 Sports Network, but Dan Mullen, after you... Coach Mullen, you talked so much trash last year after Georgia lost to you by over 20 points. You said, this is an end of an era. The Gators are going to dominate from now on. And now the Florida Gators, after having lost Kyle Pitts and Kyle Trask, 2 guys that were very integral parts of their historic offense last year, the Florida Gators are sitting here 4-4, and they are one of the teams that is worse than the SEC when it comes to recruiting, which is absolutely unacceptable because Florida is a big-time brand. It's a big-time program. It's on the levels of USC, but USC in the Southeast. That's Florida. What? And now the Florida Gators, 4-4. Dan Mullen, To be honest, Loro, I think you should give him a pass because, he lost Kyle Trask, he lost Kyle Pitts, he lost Kadarius Toney as well. And he lost a bunch of great players from that historically great offense that they had there in Gainesville. So they were expected to take a step back. I think you have to give him a pass, but I don't think you could give him a pass for his recruiting being so poor, because this is Florida we're talking about. This is not Mississippi State or some program in the Midwest. No, this is the Florida Gators, one of the biggest brands in all of college football. I think you give him a pass. I don't think you fire him this season, because if you fire him, he's going to have a ton of suitors. But I think you give him a pass. But if next year is the same thing, I think we could be seeing an Ed Orgeron situation where they had a great historic run, but it was the talent, not the coaching, that was the reason why they had that great run. But, Mr. Mullen, karma, man. Karma is a sweet little pickle.
And what's going to happen when Alabama beats Georgia, Isaiah?
Next topic.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to win in the SEC, and you have to win in the SEC. You're absolutely right about that. So we're going to bring in Callum McClurg now on as the Conference USA extend invitations to New Mexico State, Liberty, Jacksonville State, and Sam Houston University to join the Conference USA. Callum, you know this conference pretty well. You've worked in some small schools. You've done all that. I mean, I'm just kidding. I'm just playing with you, Callan. So what are your thoughts on this?
I for one, am probably one of the most skeptical college sports fans out there when it comes to all this realignment talk, fellas. And I've been this way since Isaiah, myself, and Sammy Sharp talked about the first big domino of Oklahoma and Texas choosing to leave the Big 12 for the Southeastern Conference. And this has become a pretty, I wouldn't say out of control, but is becoming a bit of an out of control situation where I still believe that this is not going to work with all this movement. I know that it's all about football. It's all about the money and the TV revenue coming in for these conferences and for these programs. But at the same time, though, fellas, there was a very damning revelation of a story I sent to our host chat on Wednesday night before I was working my women's soccer match at USD when we played St. Mary's, that there is now, right now, fellas, an ongoing fight right now between James Madison University and the Colonial Athletic Conference, where James Madison, I believe, has already drafted plans, guys, to depart from the Sun Belt Conference. And if they were to leave or make an official statement or announcement, guess what? Their student athletes and their teams get punished by the CAA where they can't play for a conference championship. And James Hickey, who I happen to know, who works as a PA announcer and a band manager at JMU, was constantly retweeting outraged parents and outraged student athletes who had written letters to the conference front office, and parents, disapproving and calling the commissioner a clown and nothing more than a joke. This guy's right here is the reason why I really believe a lot of this, moving of the chess pieces is not going to work, because you are going to have something like this happen where, just for example, say if Gonzaga ever left the West Coast Conference, and then if they chose to, we're going to go to the Mountain West, and this is all hypothetical, but just think, though, that if this happens where, Gonzaga announces plans to move to the Mountain West Conference, oh, sorry, Gonzaga, you can't play for the men's basketball championship. Oh, you can't play in volleyball. Oh, you can't play in, in all these other sports, though. And that's where I think more so my gripe is, as a former athlete, student athlete myself, though, is I would be absolutely irate, enraged, pissed, fuming, and pulling the hair out of my scalp that all my hard work is going to be going right down the drain because some people in a conference front office want to hold you hostage and hold this grudge against you because something out of your control as a student athlete is taking place with this JMU incident, where, again, guys, I really don't believe that these moves are going to work. I know you may sound, oh, come on, man, you work in college sports. I do. I don't work in college football. I don't care about college football. I care about college volleyball, college basketball, college baseball, college softball, college soccer, where I know that football is like it funnels in. It's like a giant funnel when you change your oil in a car. It goes from football and it funnels all the way down to the rest of the programs. But I don't know if this is really going to work. Yes, it may look great, but like I told John Alcorn though, when the whole first story broke about OU and Texas wanting to leave though, what happens though, or what would have happened if the Big 12 didn't invite BYU and Cincinnati and Houston? And they would have dissolved that conference. And if Texas and Oklahoma got tired of getting crushed every week by Bama and Georgia, mainly in football, there's no way out. There's no exit. There's no evacuation route or procedure to go back to the Big 12 because that conference would have been gone goodbye. That'd be the same thing with the West Coast Conference if Gonzaga ever left. Yeah, I know that BYU's leaving, but there's, at least in my mind, I'm not going to speculate, but I can think of at least two schools who could fill that void once BYU does leave the West Coast Conference. There may, in fact, be some more shuffling at the D2 level. And one of the conferences I work in the Pac West, there's been some rumblings of some of the schools up in Isaiah's neck of the woods who probably can't make ends meet with money. They may have to fold their athletic programs. And I've already seen this, guys, twice in the time I've been at Point Loma Nazarene. We've lost BYU Hawaii. We've lost Notre Dame Dana Muir. There's been some, not full-blown rumors, but some discussion that maybe colleges in Oakland, colleges in San Rafael might not be able to keep playing because of enrollment or because the athletes don't choose to go there and stuff like that. So again, I think it's great that there's so much movement, but I just, for one, fellas, and again, you can call me stupid or an idiot, but I just don't think that a lot of this movement is going to really benefit college football or even college sports, especially when you maybe have programs who aren't known for football. And then if they go to a, very good basketball conference and they keep getting crushed, what do you do about the whole program? If it was football only with all these moves going on, I'd be totally fine with it. But with every program going, though, I don't know if this really works because the competition could be, here in one conference and then it could climb, by 10 or 100 times going to, for example, the SEC or to the ACC or the Pac-12 and stuff like that. I know there's been so many rumors for years about San Diego State, for example, in football going to the Pac-12. I don't see it happening because USC and UCLA basically run the roost with recruiting in Southern California for college football, including here in San Diego. Maybe basketball, maybe baseball, maybe soccer. But again, with football, I just don't know, guys, if this really is going to work out. I mean, I get the fact, though, that these schools are giving invites out to let programs move freely. But as someone, though, who works inside of D1 and D2 athletics, I really don't see, fellas, how a lot of these programs survive their first few years moving the chess pieces on the board. The Big 12 I thought was going to be dead when OU and Texas left, but thankfully they reached out to 4 other schools. I know that Isaiah doesn't care a lot about other conferences, but you have to really consider, like the CAA, with them banning James Madison from potentially playing for a conference championship because people that are not playing the games are saying, hey, if you release this statement, you're not able to play. You're disqualified for playing for a conference championship. And again, you're gonna punish the kids. It's like a divorce, fellas. You're gonna punish the kids because you and your wife or spouse couldn't make things work out. You're gonna punish the kids for your faults or their faults. That's more of what I compare this to. And then I think you just also have to think about small conferences, though, who probably, like the WCC again, who are not a football conference or the Big West or conferences like that, where they're driven by basketball, they're driven by baseball, they're driven by other sports that Isaiah does not find interesting to watch every day like I do, and things like that. But again, I get the whole idea, though, of them moving the puzzle pieces around. But honestly, Loro and Isaiah, I have a very grim and bad feeling that a lot of this movement is not going to pan out. I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but as someone, like I said, who works inside of both D1 and D2 college athletics, I mean, it may look great on paper, guys. It may look like a super team. But once you kind of get that first dose of reality when you have to play a big, bad program in Division I or in a new conference, it's a very tough, rude awakening.
It is. So before we get to Isaiah here, we will have a comment from Ishmael Lancaster. And he also wants to say, good evening, gentlemen. And he has a question for us. And he also says, quick question, fellas. Is Isaiah Austin Reeves a gent? He was only one hyping him up this much. And then before we get to that, he also says, I thought Isaiah was a Mississippi State fan after his amazing spiel yesterday about their quarterback Rodgers and Mike Leake. So I don't know what to say about that, but also back to the Austin.
I don't know, Isaiah. Are you Austin Reeves' agent?
When have I hyped him up besides tonight on the program? Actually,
Every Minneapolis, Los Angeles Laker game that they've played this season, I get text at 3 o'clock in the morning about how great this kid is and stuff like that.
Well, that's because I recognize greatness. I think this kid, like I said, he has the potential to be Tyler Hero 2.0.
Give us your thoughts about college realignment, sir.
Yeah, so my thoughts on this, first of all, I am extremely thrilled for the New Mexico State Aggies because we had Colin Deaver on, I believe, a couple months ago, and he was talking about how the Aggies really wanted to move to a conference because it would give them, a lot more money, it would give them a TV deal, all that good stuff, and it would help boost their program because, let's face it, New Mexico State, their football program, their athletic program just doesn't have that much funding. So he really wanted them to get into a conference. And with all this conference realignment thing going around, I'm glad that the Aggies got picked up because it would have been a shame if everybody was moving, but the Aggies were stuck in independent because nobody wants them since their football team is so dang bad. So I'm happy for the Aggies.
I don't hear Notre Dame complaining. I don't hear BYU complaining about being independent.
Well, but Callan, really, you can't put you can't put those two schools though.
I don't hear BYU or Notre Dame complaining, and they're both independent. I don't even hear UConn complaining, and they're independent too.
No, but you know the Aggies' issues. It's been well documented. But in terms of like the Conference USA, I think they had to do it just because I guess like you have to have 8 schools in a conference to at least to be in the FBS, so they had to do it because everybody's taking, started with the SEC, taking Texas and Oklahoma from the Big 12, and then Big 12 takes a bunch of American Athletic Conference schools, and then they take a bunch of Mountain West, Conference USA.
BYU is not in the Mountain West Conference, sir.
Well, yeah, they got BYU. BYU is independent, but you know where I'm going. So it's basically a trickle-down effect. I don't know if this is going to work, to be honest with you. I really don't know if it's going to work. For me, as an SEC fan, I'm really thrilled because we get to add 2 of the biggest programs and brand names into the conference.
SEC bandwagoner is Isaiah. You're no fan. You are a bandwagon, sir.
I agree, Callan.
Thank you.
Having said that, though, it's good for the SEC because the SEC gets strengthened. But in terms of this, like Callan said, I just don't know. I'm proceeding with caution right now simply because if you are like a Texas, like an Oklahoma, and you're used to all this winning, especially Oklahoma and Texas with all their fans, be like, oh, we're this great school. You go into the SEC, there's no way Texas is going to be above Georgia or Alabama or even Florida in some years. There's no way. Maybe Oklahoma can legitimately challenge them because they actually have a really good football program and they got a really good coach. But in terms of the other sports, I just don't know. So I'm happy for New Mexico State because they definitely needed to be in conference. It really is going to help save their athletic program and help them have better facilities. And so I'm happy for them. But like Christy mentioned, if we could pull it up, that would be great. That comment from Christy, it's extremely complicated. And I think you got to proceed with caution right now. I think that's what you got to enter. It's not like it's a slam dunk. It could be good, but it also could potentially backfire. It's like a big gamble.
the bad outweighs the good in my mind when it comes to this sort of stuff. And like I've said, with me being in D1 and D2 athletics, you really don't know what goes on. But more so, I agree though with Isaiah and Christy that I think that in this instance, guys, the bad outweighs the good in my mind, and it's not even close.
Caleb, Loro, before you go, I got a question for you before we move on from this topic, and that is, you have known San Diego State. They're in your conference, I believe.
No.
There were rumors, I believe, that they had rejected an invitation from the American Athletic Conference a couple weeks ago because they wanted to move to like the Pac-12 or even the Big 12. What was your thoughts on it? Do you think that SDSU made the right move, like declining that American Athletic Conference invitation? Which, let's face it, American Athletic Conference, I feel like would be kind of it wouldn't be like a upgrade from the Mountain West because they're not Power 5. So what was your thoughts on that?
This is the second time I can recall that the Aztecs tried to move. Again, I don't actually work at San Diego State. I work at the University of San Diego in the West Coast Conference. But this is not the first time, though, that SDSU has tried to leave the Mountain West. They did try, I think, in 2013 to go to the Big East, I think, when it was like Tulane and Houston, may have been Central Florida, and that was going to be a football-only move. I think them and Boise were both trying to get out. That obviously didn't happen. But now with the American, I recall hearing that story, though. But like I said, though, SDSU has been pretty hell-bent on getting into the Pac-12, I think, for everything. Because, for one, men's soccer is the only sport that I know of that is not in the Mountain West, because the Mountain West does not sponsor men's soccer. So they've been playing in the Pac-12 for who knows how long, Pac-10, Pac-12. And while I think that they still are hell-bent on getting into the Pac-12, I personally don't see it happening, like I mentioned, though, because USC and UCLA basically could say, no, we already have two SoCal schools in the conference. We basically recruit in San Diego, so thanks, but no thanks. I could maybe see other sports, maybe basketball, maybe even baseball, softball, maybe even as well. Obviously, men's soccer is already playing there. Volleyball, maybe, who knows, but at the same time, though, the Pac-12 for football, I don't see it coming to fruition. I honestly really don't even see it really coming to fruition for any other sport, maybe, for San Diego State, with, again, minus men's soccer, with it being a non-Mountain West sponsored sport. But in the grand scheme of things, though, I think they've been trying for so long. I think that with them having like this great reputation, winning with football, beating Pac-12 teams, and basketball beating Pac-12 teams is great and all. But again, I think that USC and UCLA kind of having like the stranglehold a little bit on Southern California for recruiting for all sports, not just football. But also, I do think, though, that the reason why that they have not left Isaiah for the Pac-12 is because the Mountain West kind of needs San Diego State, like how Gonzaga and the WCC are a perfect marriage. Because if you lose that, you're kind of in a way scrambling, because minus San Diego State, there's really not a very like marquee draw or a marquee conference school, honestly, in the Mountain West that I can think of without SDSU. You can probably think of Wyoming or Colorado State.
Boise?
Maybe New Mexico State, Boise State, maybe Nevada, Reno. But at the same time, with how San Diego State draws here at Viejas Arena for every home game, even during conference play, I really don't see San Diego State moving unless USC and UCLA kind of back off finally and say, okay, we'll let you come in. But I think that this is still years away. Plus, you still have to kind of wait for that stadium to be built, though, which is still being done. And I think, though, that kind of in a way, though, more so, I kind of think, though, Isaiah, this does bring a good point to my head, though. I do think, though, that it's almost in a way that while State has been scheduling Pac-12 teams, I also do think it's kind of like the Pac-12 saying, okay, you want in? Prove you can hang with the big dogs. Prove you can beat USC, UCLA. Prove you can beat Arizona State in baseball. Prove you can beat all of our schools come basketball season. Beat us in volleyball, beat us in soccer, beat us in every, once you can prove you can hang with the big dogs, then maybe we'll throw you a bone is what I kind of think, though. But believe me, Isaiah, this has been going on for a while. I, for one, just don't see it happening for a while. Maybe not ever, but I won't say never. But certainly they've tried with the Big East for football. They tried the American. The Pac-12 is going to kind of be their spot to go. And I really don't see it happening. In a way, it reminds me a lot of Hawaii, your beloved Rainbow Warriors playing football only in the Mountain West, where, again, they were a WAC team way back when the WAC was the actual WAC. And now they're Big West for everything else, though. So I don't see see it really happening. Ishmael, what I can recall, though, about them leaving the WAC, as Isaiah said, that was about money, but also that the whole conference geography has been put through the shredder. I mean, you're talking about a Western Conference, the WAC, the Western Athletic Conference, having schools in Kansas City, Chicago, I think in Indiana, Iowa, Oklahoma, Texas, I think. So it's not really much of a Western Conference now that the Mountain West essentially is the old WAC of San Diego State, Fresno State, those sort of schools. So I think it was more money. It was more of that, but also I think that the geography kind of got thrown out of place, though. And I do want to bring up this comment that Ishmael said, though, too, that his issue is some of the schools that are moving. What if they play sports that their new conference doesn't sponsor? What happens? Again, Ishmael, to my point, SDSU men's soccer plays in the Pac-12 because, you answered the question, the Mountain West Conference does not sponsor men's soccer. Case in point, too, we have on the women's side, Colorado College, who I believe is a D2 program, their conference does not sponsor women's soccer. So what happens? They play in the Mountain West Conference. So again, Ishmael, that is more so the other thing, though, is that, mainly both conferences that I work in, from my experience, they are both non-football because they're both Division IIs. They're all Western-based, and they're all religious or faith-based universities for the majority of the conference. And I believe, I don't want to, step on anyone's toes at USD, but I believe that the West Coast Conference might have a small loophole that if and when BYU does leave, that I believe, I might be wrong though, but I believe what I have gathered from some folks who have worked at the school have said that the WCC wants to keep it all faith/religious/ private-based universities. And I think the two that have popped into my head who could, keyword here is could, please don't quote me, but could perhaps join Grand Canyon and Seattle University. Again, GCU right now is currently in the, they are both, or GCU is in the WAC right now, in the WAC, and they have a amazing fan base down there. I actually worked a game when they came to USC to play the Toreros when Dan Marley, Suns legend, was their head men's basketball coach. They brought like 4,000 people from Phoenix to USD for that ball game. So they have a following. They have a great fan base. So maybe they could, in fact, get an offer. I've even heard a couple of things at the D2 level, Ishmael, in the conference that I work in at Point Loma. Maybe Westmont College, maybe the Masters, who the women's team played the night for hoops. So I think Ishmael's onto a great point, though, guys, that's where things get fuzzy. That's where things get very hairy. What if there is a move made, but that conference doesn't sponsor men's soccer or doesn't sponsor certain sports, and things like that. But again, a lot of moving pieces. I think that Adam or that Ishmael's right. Too many moving pieces. And then it makes my head hurt. I definitely agree. But Loro, back over to you.
All right, so let's talk about baseball now. We're in the final topic of baseball. Let's start with the news of the day for baseball, is that Buster Posey is retiring after a phenomenal 12-year career. He spent the majority of his career with the San Francisco Giants. And I'll tell you what, as a Dodger fan myself, I've seen him play against my team 19 times a year. He played the game with class. He's a good man on and off the field. And all in all, a great player, good catcher, and a good hitter. And I think the Giants are not going to be the same without him. But I'll tell you guys this. Joey Bart is going to be a stud. Watch out. The Giants are in good hands with Joey Bart behind the plate. I think they're going to keep Brandon Belt. They already locked up Brandon Crawford for a couple more seasons. And I think that the Giants might want to add a couple of more bats in their lineup along with pitching. I talked about off air with Isaiah. They should add Starling Marte to their outfield mix. I'm not sure if Chris Bryant's going to want to stay there. He probably is going to want to join Javi Baez. I think Chris Bryant's going to want to play third base, and I think he's going to want to join Javier Baez and Francisco Lindor with the New York Mets so that he can be in that infield and play at third base. Isaiah, let me go to you first on this. What are your takeaways on Buster Posey returning? Obviously, your Oakland A's would play him pretty much twice a year.
Well, first of all, let me say this. When I first heard that he was retiring, I was stunned. I was really shocked because he had a fantastic year last season. I think that he probably will win the comeback player of the year. There's, you can make an argument. There's like arguments for different players, but I think Posey's definitely up there regarding the comeback player of the year. Let's not forget, this dude was 33 or 34. He had hip surgery in 2019, sits out last season. And then when he does play this season, you're thinking like, what? How is he going to look? I mean, coming off hip surgery,
a broken leg early in his career, nonetheless, too.
Yeah, early on in his career. Look at Matt Chapman. He had hip surgery. He was never the same. Struck out a whole bunch. And
you called him the face of baseball.
Moving on from there. I'm not going to discuss that. But
no, really, Matt Chapman, face of baseball, huh?
Really, Isaiah, let me say this. Matt Chapman is not really the face of baseball, but Matt Chapman's an elite hitter.
Thank you, Loro.
He is. But Buster Posey, he had a fantastic year. I think he hit like over 300 with, I believe, 20-something home runs and I believe 100-plus RBIs. And he was amazing. He was an amazing player this season. It seemed like he found the fountain of youth. It seemed like he was back to being the Buster Posey during his prime in like the early 2010s when the Giants were winning World Series after World Series after World Series. And he looked like he was back on offense. He had not lost any luster defensively, which was great. And I thought that, hey, man, this guy could play for another 10 years if he wanted to with the way that he was playing. And I was shocked. I was really shocked that he decided to step away from the game and retire. I don't know what the exact reason is because he looked like he was healthy. He looked
family
like
wear and tear is what he said.
Yeah, maybe that's why. And we're definitely, or the Giants, not we, but the Giants are definitely going to miss him. I'm definitely going to miss him as well because, believe it or not, Loro and Callan, when I first moved here to the Bay Area, I actually first started watching Giants baseball before I started watching the A's. Before I started working for the A's and started watching the A's full time. So I watched a lot of Buster Posey. I watched a lot of, Giants baseball, and Buster Posey was clutch. He was a tremendous leader. He was one of the best defensively. You could make that argument, either him or Yadi or Molina being one of the best catchers defensively. He was tremendous at calling games. And I think the thing about him that was really underrated is he made pitchers better. The pitchers that you typically were looking at him like, really? He's not really that good. Why is he pitching for the Giants? And then you look, boom, this guy is throwing like 7 shutout innings or whatever. And you're like, wow, how did that happen? How did Yusmeiro Petit, who was a journeyman at that time, come within 1 out of throwing a perfect game? It was crazy. Like, Buster Posey had such great impact on pitchers. Like Adam said, he's a top 10 catcher of all time. And I think, I also got to agree with what Ryan Vogelsong had to say today on NBC Sports California with the San Francisco Giants, and that was Buster Posey. You cannot leave him off the Giants' Mount Rushmore. I don't think you can ever leave him off. Like, you have a lot of great players that played for the Giants, both in Brooklyn and also with San Francisco. You cannot leave Buster Posey off that list. I don't think you can leave Buster Posey off that list.
When did the Giants play in Brooklyn, Isaiah?
The New York Giants.
They were the New York Giants. Yeah, that's how the Dodgers and Giants rivalry happened. But, I wanted to say this before I get to Callan here. I really think that this season he should have not played catcher. I just felt like that he would have been better off being a first baseman because I wanted to see what Joey Bart was all about. And you guys are going to really enjoy watching him play.
You learn to respect greatness when you see it, regardless if you like the organization that they're playing for or not. And certainly Posey killed the Padres who knows how many times in his career. Obviously the 2010 season, still pains me to remember. But of course, him being a part of that Giants club who, rallied back after the Padres left the door ajar and they came charging back to win the division title, win the World Series, obviously, that season. And then, of course, I do think, though, he kind of, in a way, changed the game, fellas, because of the Buster Posey rule, where if you now take a catcher out, I think you're ejected and perhaps suspended because of the injury that he suffered early in his career. And I do think that, obviously, I think honestly one of the greatest catchers to play in Giants history. There's been, obviously, I think Isaiah said it right, there's been so many, great guys who have put on that, orange and black jersey, to play for the Giants organization. And to see Posey call it quits, though, today was very shocking. I thought he could have, played maybe one more season, two maybe at most. But I think he's right, though. The wear and tear, the fatigue of catching and being in that crouch position for so many times during a season and trying to command, five starters plus a full bullpen kind of gets to you. I think that Isaiah is also right, though, with how he was able to, bounce back after missing the whole season last year and just hit the way that he had hit, though. And I remember cheering for Buster, though, during the World Baseball Classic. We had the games here in San Diego. I think in 2017 it was here, and he had a huge home run in a game I was at. And, he played a big part in Team USA winning that WBC title in 2017 that year. And he's going to be a guy that I'm going to miss seeing the Padres have to face because he always, like, came through in a big moment, always had, the power bat in the lineup somewhere and would call a great game behind the plate. And he'd also throw those guys out and trying to steal second base or steal bases in general. But again, you learn to respect greatness when you see it, regardless if you like the organization or not. And for all my life, I've seen all four other California baseball teams find success, but mine until, 2020 hit, of course, and stuff like that. But, mad respect for Buster Posey. Certainly I think a guy who will have that number retired in Oracle Park in the next 5 to 10 years and will be well-deserved. I'm sure he'll probably get votes for the Hall of Fame. I hope he gets in as well. Again, 3 World Series titles, all the silver sluggers and stuff of that nature. And I wish him and his family all the best going forward. And maybe we'll see him in the broadcast booth. Who knows, calling Giants games next season. We'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Ishmael has a question for you, Callan, and he wants to know, what are your thoughts on Bob Melvin going to your San Diego Padres? To me, as a Dodger fan myself, before you go, Callan, I really think that Bob Melvin is the right person to be in San Diego.
I have to thank Mount Carmel High School alum and San Diego native and Isaiah's good friend Billy Bean for letting him interview with the Padres, but also reading some of the reports I read from AJ Cassaville, the Padres beat writer, on Monday when I got back from my day over at Disney California Adventure seeing the Avengers, was that, I think he said it right, though, is that they had their list, but Bob Melvin kept sticking out, though, for some reason, and he was at the top of their food chart. I know, of course, Bochy, Ron Washington, Mike Schilt were there, but I think, though, that as Bob told the story on Monday, though, about him and AJ Preller having dinner, well into the evening hours in Phoenix or in Peoria, was like, traction was being gained. But more than anything else, though, simple answer is that the Padres got a guy with managerial experience. That is really all that mattered to me. I didn't really care who they hired, as long as it was somebody out there like Melvin, like Bochy, or someone who had that experience to lead this clubhouse, who again has the face of baseball. It has been written, Isaiah, by several writers and said on programs on ESPN and MLB Network, with Fernando Tatis Jr. leading this very fun ball club, plus Machado. Maybe Hosmer does get dealt. Will Myers, maybe he gets dealt. Who knows? But Jake Cronenworth and, and pitchers like Snell and Darvish and guys like that this is the right guy. And again, he is, he had to work through so many hurdles and, tight budgets and credit card debt and this and that in Oakland. And he made it work somehow, some way in a very cheap organization, as it has been in Oakland since 2002. And now he's coming to a franchise who has been obviously not afraid to spend, not afraid to gamble on getting big name players. And now he's going to have a lot more tools in the shed to choose from. Obviously, the big part, though, will be turning around turning around the ball club after a very dismal second half finish. But that more so for me goes on the front office. Go out there and get more starting pitching, add more depth, add more to the farm system or whatnot. But certainly, I, for one, have always loved and respected Bob Melvin, especially when he did manage against the Padres in Arizona with the D-backs. And I think as well, though, that even with that, his quote, though, about when they came here to play the Padres in July or in June, and he said, it's a Tuesday night. We have 40,000 people at the ballpark. Like, this is uncharted territory because, hey, I manage in Oakland. We get 1,000 people, and Isaiah's sitting down and drinking a beer watching the game at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum, and he's not doing his job properly. So that tells you a lot, though, about the city and about what is going to be happening and what he thinks so. But also, I think, though, that Melvin's not going to take any crap. And I think that even Jim said it right here, that Melvin really sticks up for his players. Could tell that with Oakland, just reading like Chris Bassett or reading guys who played for Bob, either in Arizona or even in Seattle or in his time in Oakland, that he really is a guy who keeps things loose. He's not going to be this overbearing presence in the locker room or in the clubhouse, but he's very steady. More than anything else, though, managerial experience and a guy who knows how to kind of in a way keep stuff from hitting the fan, and where things, if they do get out of control, though, he does step in. He doesn't, he's not like Jace Tingler and he hides behind, or he hides behind his coaching staff. Now, that's obviously going to be one of the things, though, that they do, in fact, have to somewhat, in a way, patch up is a new coaching staff, whether it's guys from the minor leagues. They already have a new pitching coach in from the Guardians organization in Cleveland. I believe it's Ruben Nabella, who's now the Padre pitching coach. And obviously, maybe it'll be guys who are with Bob in Arizona, maybe, or in Oakland, perhaps, or in Seattle. We'll see what happens. But certainly, I'm very happy about it. I think we have the right guy in place. And certainly, I think a guy who will right away, I think, say, fellas, cut the crap. Time for you to earn my respect. And that's more so what has been missing under A.J. Preller over the past couple of seasons. Simple as that.
Yes, and Isaiah, you have something to say about Bob Melvin now being in San Diego. I bet he's going to love the weather, and I think that he's the right man to lead.
He's going to love having a full house for once at a home ballpark.
Well, let me start by saying this. Bob Melvin will be taking Darren Bush down to San Diego as his hitting coach. Ryan Christensen will be his bench coach, and the A's will have a whole new coaching staff. So thank goodness.
And you're going to lose 100 games next season, as you've already told me.
It's going to depend on who the A's get as their manager. Could they
get? It's going to be Darren Bush. He's next in line.
Could it be Buck Showalter, or is it going to be Ron Washington?
Nobody.
For me, when it comes to this move, I know when you're losing a coach, you're supposed to be sad about it. But honestly, I'm not. I'm honestly like probably one of the few Ace fans that is kind of thrilled that Melvin left, just because I think it's time for a fresh voice. It's like this. When you've been at a place for like 10 plus years and you don't win a championship, but you're consistently like falling short of even advancing to the conference championship the ALCS series, it's time. You just cannot keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's time that someone with a new voice, maybe he could do it differently. I kind of liken this to the Marvin Lewis situation with the Bengals. Melvin was a great manager. He was a phenomenal coach. He changed the culture in Oakland. But at the end of the day, it's time for a new, fresh voice. And I'm glad that the A's got it with Melvin going to San Diego. He's going to do a great job down there in Paradise Cove, San Diego, which we're now calling San Diego, by the way. But he's going to do a great job, and I wish him nothing but the best. And Bannister to the A's, please.
Yeah, Yeah, we got Isaiah leaving here, but also I had some debates here on some free agents. But before that, let's talk about if the DH is coming to the National League. And I predict yes. I really think that players are going to get more jobs in the next collective bargaining agreement. And I think that the DH to the National League will be good for this game of baseball, and especially for old players. And I'll tell you, Callan, I think the universal DH to the NL is going to benefit three teams: the Dodgers, the Mets, and the Braves. What are your thoughts?
I think it's inevitable, but I still think there's going to be resistance. Because I think that they want to keep this somewhat different. I think they want to keep AL rules in AL ballparks and vice versa. And like I've said for a long time, Loro, and I think you would maybe agree, but with both of us being National League Baseball fans, we're so used to the pitcher hitting because it's an actual position on the field, but also that we like the double switch. I mean, I think the Dodgers utilize the double switch probably more than most ball clubs do nowadays in baseball. So I think that it is inevitable, but I still don't think it's going to come to pass because I think there's going to be some ball club out there, for example, San Diego, the Dodgers, maybe the Mets, or some ball club out there who says, wait a minute, what are we doing here? Why all of a sudden are we going to, change everything and not let an actual position on the field not hit for himself? I know, of course, it's terrible when interleague play does happen and you have a AL team playing in an NL ballpark and just had the pitcher standing there, strike one, strike two, strike three. But again, if you are playing the field like the pitcher does play the field, then you, in my mind, have to hit for yourself. Simple as that.
Yeah, but are you saying that you think that the DH is coming?
I do think it is, but I still think there's going to be blowback or pushback by some players or by an organization or by a good chunk of the organizations. Like, just for example, like the Cubs, for example, who've been around for who knows how long. The Reds, that they basically started baseball in the 1800s, and they have played the game the same way since 1876. I mean, there may be blowback, but again, I personally think it is inevitable, but I really don't think it's going to come to pass, and that might be one big breaking point for the CBA.
Yeah, I think it's like James Gonzalez says, it's time for the universal DH, but you're not saying that it's not going to pass, though.
No, I do believe it's inevitable that it is going to come, but I also don't think that it's going to happen. I think that there's going to be some team out there who's going to say, what are we doing here,
Yeah, I think it's coming to the National League. I think it's time.
Personally, I think it is. Me personally, I think it is coming, but on a grander stage of things, there's going to be some organization, some team who's going to say, thanks, but no thanks.
There'll be one team that'll say, yeah, thanks, but no thanks when it comes to those CBA talks and all that. I think that but you and I are both on the same page that we both think that the universal DH is going to be coming to the National League. Yes. And then we're going to have DHs in both leagues. And I think that's going to be good for the sport of baseball.
I think Christie's right, though. Baseball is a sport that is pretty resistant to change. That I agree with 100%. I think, Loro, you would agree, too.
It is, but that's what I think, too. But also, when we talk about free agents, I talked about this with Isaiah off the air before we came on. I talked about Starling Marte leaving the A's, and I think he joins the Bay Area rival Giants because I don't think – I could see Chris Bryant staying there, but I don't think he would want to play right field. I feel like Chris Bryant should be playing third base for another team, though.
Yeah, Bryant's got to be playing third base, and I don't think Loro people really grasp. And this was the same with me. I had gone from playing the outfield my whole career to playing the infield for the remainder of my career, and it is in fact a transition because you have to you're using a smaller glove than what you use in the outfield. And also, if you're in the outfield, though, sometimes you can kind of be a little lackadaisical, lose your focus for a second. The ball gets hit to you, and you're like, oh my goodness, what do I do? So personally, I think that Bryant needs to be at third. I just don't know, though, if the Giants, and again, like I said this back in August, I think that the reports come out, Loro, that I don't think that Bryant wanted to stay in San Francisco regardless of how their season went. And honestly, is there going to be a team out there who can fork out the money that he wants? Honestly, the Mets maybe, maybe some other ball club who could use a third baseman.
Maybe here are my potential fits. The Mets, because I think you would want to team up with Francisco Lindor and Javier Baez in that infield. And then maybe the Phillies if they don't like Alec Baum because he could play with his buddy Bryce Harper.
That much is true. I mean, yeah, I mean they're both from Vegas, so I totally catch your drift there. The Mets, I don't know. I honestly would not want to touch that organization with a 10-foot pole right now, man. So much dysfunction. I read a story today on Yahoo about that. Apparently, the Francisco Lindor, Jeff McNeil altercation happened back in May. I heard that Lindor had grabbed McNeil by the throat and kind of choked him out. So I don't know if you really want to be in that clubhouse right now, Loro, with so much turnover right now. Again, new Luis Rojas canned as manager. You had all the off the field issues happen with Jared Porter and Mickey Callaway with the Mets. Then you had Lindor choking, allegedly choking Jeff McNeil in the tunnel of the hallway to the clubhouse in May. You had the whole thumbs down thing cheer towards, booing the fans. And that the Mets, they can never get out of their own way. So I don't know if Bryant would want to go to a very somewhat toxic work environment not in Phoenix, in Flushing right now with the Mets. Philadelphia maybe, but the Phillies always seem to crap out though when the going gets tough though. Harper played great, I know, in the second half of the year though, but that they just find it. But that for once for Philadelphia, don't sign the big name position player. Go get pitching. Simple as that. Please.
They do need to get pitching, but I think Bryant would be a fit for the Phillies. Mets, possibly, but I think Javier Baez is going to be back with the Mets to play with Lindor.
I thought about that very hard, about the whole thumbs down thing that happened. I don't know, though. I think that he rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way. And again, this is what I said back in August on the Sports Lounge, Loro. That whole ordeal, man, may have rubbed a lot of Met fans the wrong way, especially when, and like I said, though, Javier Baez last year was an uncharted territory, going from playing with the Cubs, the lovable losers, where the fan base applauds the team when they lose a game, to going into New York. Rough, tough, gruff fan base. Life and death. You lose a game, oh my goodness, trade this guy, get him off my team. That is the mindset, though, of places like New York and Los Angeles and Chicago, Houston, Dallas, you name it. And that a lot of these guys, Loro, they can't handle the pressure of playing in these big markets because either the fan base gets on your tail, the media's on your tail, the social media trolls are on your tail. And when you go from playing with the Cubs, like Baez did, to playing with the Mets in a somewhat tortured fan base and in a city who demands championships every season, regardless if it's pros or the minor leagues. And if you're not doing your job, they want you gone. And I just don't know if he wants to return to that type of an environment with the Mets next season, especially after the whole thumbs down thing last season.
What do you think about Starling Marte to the Giants with Marcus Semien?
Possible. I think that the Giants are going to look perhaps at maybe adding more bats, though they had a great, tremendous lineup last season. I think that Gabe Kapler is going to win. I think he's the slam dunk winner of the manager of the year. Though I would love to give it to Brian Snitker, but it's a regular season award. And I think that Gabe Kapler turned around a very floundering Giants team after the past 2 seasons, got them back on track. And I know they got beat by the Dodgers in the first round, though. But again, they won 107 games, though. I think it's like an all-time franchise high for them winning games, though. But that Gabe Kapler did a great job, though. But I think more so with them, there's not a lot really to patch up, though. Obviously, new catcher, maybe it's Bart. Maybe they go and get a veteran for a bit, kind of let Bart ride his coattails for a bit. Maybe they tweak his service time a little bit more as well, perhaps. Who really knows? But certainly maybe one more corner outfielder and maybe one more arm in the bullpen. Who knows?
The reason why I say Starling Marte is because I think he could play center field. You could move Mike Yastrzemski back to right field, and I think the Giants need a second baseman. That's why I think Marcus Semien would definitely be a great fit to play for the Giants.
I like watching Donovan Solano. I like watching him play second base. I do know that but the thing, though, with Starling Marte, I want this guy just to get a permanent home for once. I mean, he's been dealt like we're dealing out blackjack cards. I mean, from Pittsburgh to Miami to Oakland, like he's Arizona, like he's not really had a permanent spot. And I will throw one more name out there at you, Loro, for a potential outfield spot for Marte would be San Diego, because there's talk of them perhaps trading Myers and Hosmer, because of the financial burden that both those guys have. Tommy Pham is not going to be coming back to San Diego after obviously his production, plus the off the field snafu at the strip club too last season, and that the Padres will need a huge. Well, the Padres have got to get a corner outfielder. Pitching is obviously number one on the list though, but corner outfield help is going to be a huge need for the Padres this offseason, and I would not count them out. They were close on getting Marte before he went to the Marlins in last season, so I would not rule out Marte to San Diego, but I do want to see this guy get a permanent home somewhere. And also, James asking me if I want Trent Grisham back. Absolutely. I know that his offense, James, is not great, but his defense, I think, is more so what I think would keep him here. And I also read a report, though, that I think he declined a potential multi-year deal. But let's also remember, though, as well, James, this guy got put in the, kind of in a way, got put into the fire his rookie year in Milwaukee in 2019, where he made the air that we all know him for, sadly. But that I think that as more time goes on, I think he's going to come back. But if he does leave, though, I would be a little bit sad or a little, stunned, because Trent, I think, really turned a corner in 2020. And even this season, I know he was battling some injuries, though. I mean, I know that his offense is not quite there. But then again, though, James, what do you really expect, though, from a guy who, in a way, was kind of thrown into the fire in the postseason with really not a lot of playing time during the regular season with the Brewers, and he got dealt to San Diego, had a great 2020, kind of in a way learning on the fly, though. So we'll see what happens, but certainly I'd want to have him back in center field for the Padres for sure.
Absolutely. Then also going to my Dodgers is that Trevor Bauer reportedly won't opt out on the final 2 years of his $64 million contract with the Dodgers. Obviously, the sexual harassment incident is still being investigated, and I'm kind of confused about this, and I'm conflicted if he will be on the Dodgers in 2022. I want Max Scherzer back if the Dodgers somehow find a way to trade Trevor Bauer, knowing that he could be a distraction for the Dodgers. What are your thoughts on that, and do you think Trevor Bauer will be back in a Dodgers uniform?
Sadly, Loro, I don't think I see Bauer back in any uniform anytime soon because he has that baggage. It's a lot, in a way, reminds me, sadly, of Deshaun Watson, who I don't think we'll see this season, maybe not even next year, because I just don't think, Loro, especially nowadays, I don't think any organization wants to bring a player into the organization, or any staff member for that matter, Loro, into the organization carrying that baggage, because it is a very sensitive talking point, very, very, just very sensitive and delicate situation. And though I admired Trevor Bauer when he was with the Reds for how he spoke out against the owners in the CBA, but now with this, though, man, I think a lot of fans, and I think even Dodger fans, have lost respect for Trevor Bauer. And I think, though, Loro, I heard some unconfirmed reports that even Dodger players didn't want him back and didn't even unfollowed him on social media, and they didn't want that distraction. And I know that we can talk about Julio Urias too and his issues early in his career, though, with his assault case too that happened in Mexico. But Trevor Bauer's is way more sensitive in my mind, and that I just don't think that organizations, Loro, nowadays want to bring anybody, players, coaches, you name it, who have baggage like this, in any fashion into the organization.
Yeah, I think he might be at a distraction there. I just don't think the Dodgers are going to deal with it. That's why I think the Dodgers are going to find a way to trade him or release him. And I think the Dodgers will somehow find a way to bring back Max Scherzer. I really enjoyed him in Dodger blue, and I want to see him in Dodger blue for a full season.
I think if you're able to shred or shed Bauer's contract, maybe that frees up more money. But then again, though, with how that long list, though, Loro, of free agents, I kind of, not to say this as a Padre fan, but with all the guys who are free agents, I don't know how you make this possible to retain this roster from last season, whether it's Scherzer, Trey Turner, guys like that who were already on the books from other ball clubs. But that I don't know, though, if the Dodgers will really have it, that I think that they will. But then it's almost like you look at that long list, though, it's like, how in the world can this organization afford to keep paying that luxury tax to keep this, ball club together. I mean, at some point, you're going to have to get younger. I mean, Kershaw's getting older. Muncy's getting older. Taylor's getting older, stuff like that. And even Scherzer's getting older. So, I mean, it's possible they could perhaps keep Scherzer. But then again, it's almost like if you do, in fact, start getting younger, how much have you already sent away to just load up on rentals? Like when you loaded up with Machado in 2018, or when you loaded up with Scherzer and Turner. How much of that young crop of talent at the farm level is in fact gone? So while I do think the Dodgers will be good again next season, though, Loro, I would be a wee bit concerned, though, that this roster may not quite look the same as it has over the past several years because there's too much money committed to guys on that roster. And I think after a while, Magic Johnson and Mark Guggenheim get tired of paying that luxury tax because they're so far over that threshold line where they may have to start shedding salary to get below that. And that may result in a lot of your fan favorites up there, sadly, not being around after this season or during the offseason.
Who do you think stays? Do you think is most likely Clayton Kershaw and Max Scherzer going to be part of the Dodgers next year, and Kenley Jansen?
I see Kershaw for sure. I would not bring Jansen back. He's not the same guy. Let him move on. Find someone else to close. Joe Kelly, Blake Trinan, what have you. Scherzer, I think, will probably stay. But again, for me, it just boils down to how much will he demand for a contract. If it's a lengthy contract worth, a lot of money, possibly. But at the same time, like I said, though, it may be time, and again, this is not me saying this, folks, as a Padre fan, to see the Dodgers finally fall. But just knowing, though, about how, in fact, that they have stacked up the books, though, with all the money on the books, though, I think eventually you have to start getting younger. You can't keep all these veteran guys around for so long and hope that it keeps panning out. Older teams break down more. For example, on Loro's TV, look at the Lakers. Their starting five is old. Their roster is old. If this was a roster from 2011 or 2010, they'd be great, but not in 2021. So, I mean, with the Dodgers, at least, though, like I said, Loro, I mean, there's a lot of question marks this year. And probably for the first time in a while, man, a lot of question marks facing this organization come 2022.
You still think they're going to be good in 2022? The Dodgers will.
I expect them to be good again, but probably not at the same level as the past 9 years.
Yeah, like
I think they do decline a bit, but nothing too serious.
Okay, I saw that they're the favorites to win the World Series in 2022. Do you still see that happening?
I do. I think it also depends, though, about how other teams do, in fact, move the pieces around over the offseason. I mean, the Dodgers, Houston, Boston, Tampa. I know that the Padres are.
I mean, Tampa's not a team that's going to spend. They find a way to be good without spending a lot.
They do, and it's a credit to their entire front office for saying, what, screw it, we'll find a way to make it work.
Yes, they found a way to work with young players. So, talk about Corey Seager. Do you think he stays with the Dodgers, or do you think that he signs with either the Yankees or the Angels?
I really admire Corey Seager. I love watching him play. I know he's on a rival ball club, but again, you respect greatness when you see it. I just love watching the guy play. I mean, his bat is always solid, surefire, sure-handed. But I think, though, that with him still battling some injuries, especially, Tommy John for a position player rarely happens. That's one thing. But I think that with Trey Turner being there, I think that Seager might see that. I doubt, but he might see that and say, okay, Trey Turner's here. My playing time might be going away. I've been here for a long time. And maybe he does, in fact, look at other options, And I think the Angels, don't need more position players. They need more pitching. That has been their downfall.
I was looking at the Angels roster. They could sure use some pitching, but the Angels lineup is all right-handed bats. They need another left-handed bat in their lineup.
Yeah, you can't keep rolling Jared Walsh out there. You need to add more lefties, and you need to get a roster that's healthy. Upton's hurt, Trout's hurt. You can't rely on Ohtani and Walsh to be your two main contributors on offense, but more so, and also, and like I said, and even that, Anthony Rendon has been a total bust in his time going from Washington to the Angels. I love Rendon. but he's just not been able to stay healthy. It's either his hip or his growing as it was last season. And certainly the Angels do need a shortstop, whether it's Correa, as James alludes to, or Chris Taylor. They could use a shortstop, but I mean, there's 4 guys, I think, in the order on their lineup that I like watching. Trout, of course, he's must-see TV. Ohtani's must-see TV. Walsh is becoming that way. But also, I love a guy like David Fletcher. I love a guy like David Fletcher who leads off, scraps every at-bat, gets on base, plays good defense, has speed, has a great glove. He is a great guy to watch play.
Who is again?
David Fletcher of the Angels.
Yeah. I like David Fletcher.
I mean, Fletcher, and I think, James, you would agree, Fletcher reminds me so much of David Eckstein. Gritty guy, going up there, not getting fooled on pitches, always working the count, getting on base, base hit left field, base hit right field, base hit up the middle, can turn a double play here and there. So definitely for the Angels, their needs are this: pitching, a shortstop, and staying healthy for a full season. Simple as that.
That is. You could put David Fletcher at shortstop, but if Corey Seager comes to the Angels, he definitely could put the pressure off of Jared Walsh and Shohei Ohtani. And you also have Brandon Marsh, too, that's going to be really good. And he's going to be playing in that outfield with Joe Adell and Mike Trout. And I think that Justin Upton's going to be the odd man out.
Yeah, I think that Upton might be reduced to a Pujols role. He may become the DH, because I know that Ohtani's kind of your set DH when he's not pitching. But then if Ohtani does pitch, I mean, I know that Joe Madden has done that a bit, though, where he's actually let Ohtani hit for himself in a AL ballpark and not use the DH. So, I mean, the Angels are kind of, in a way, they're intriguing. They would be more intriguing if they would just pitch better and stay healthy. Simple as that.
Yes, and then where do you think Corey Seager goes? Stays with the Dodgers or Yankees or Angels?
If he doesn't stay with the Dodgers, I think I'd go Angels over the Yankees. I think the Yanks are set right now, basically at shortstop with what they already have, and things like that.
Another point to make here is that the Yankees also need a left-handed bat. I think Corey's brother Kyle should sign with them, just because I think they need another left-handed bat to go with. I think Anthony Rizzo's going to stay. I also think that the Yankees need to give another shot at Joey Gallo.
Yeah, I mean, I think people have given up on Gallo so quickly just because of all the strikeouts. I know that the Padres were in on Gallo. I'm glad they didn't get Gallo because of the strikeouts and things like that. But mainly, left-hand bats are, because I was a lefty myself. We are very far and few in between, because I used to bat left-handed myself. So we are very far and few in between. But certainly, especially with the Angels, though, just going back to the Angels, that lineup, when I saw them play the Padres in Anaheim, right hand. I think it went right-hander, lefty, right. So, I mean, I don't know what the direction is up there. So certainly left-hand bats will be a huge premium over the course of the offseason.
That's what the Yankees need. And then I predict that they're going to keep Anthony Rizzo. I think Anthony Rizzo loves it in New York. And then I also think that, talk about Trevor Story. Do you think he is going to stay with the Colorado Rockies to be part of that rebuild? Or what team do you see him going to?
I think the Rockies, for one, surprised a lot of people. I thought that they were going to be like the D-backs and lose 100-plus games, but Charlie Blackmon and Trevor Story kind of kept that team afloat, though. I think he's going to go somewhere else. Where, I don't know, but, there's someone out there that needs a shortstop that can play virtually every day and have a good bat, and I think that obviously he was great in Colorado. But I think, though, with them selling off or trading away Arenado, that I think Loro began the fire sale. I think that Blackman's going to be gone eventually. Maybe a Herman Marquez is dealt during the deadline. So, I mean, I really don't know, man. And, I think the Rockies surprised a lot of people, though, this season with how they played. But then again, though, I think that Story also realizes I've been here my whole career and we're not going anywhere. I got to get out of here and start going and go somewhere else, I think.
I say he signs with the Philadelphia Phillies. They need a shortstop.
I would agree about them needing a shortstop. I mean, you have Didi over at second, Bohm maybe playing third. I know that Maikel Franco was going to be there, but I think he got traded away or he signed somewhere else, though.
And the Phillies also declined options of Andrew McCutchen. I think the Phillies could add another left-handed bat to their lineup.
I mean, they could. I mean, but really, my main thing with the Phillies is you've got to get pitching, and you have to really shore up that bullpen. I mean, you cannot afford to keep blowing games like they did last season and things like that. So certainly, I don't know, Loro. It's going to be a very fun hot stove season, though. That's for sure.
It is. I mean, I'm optimistic about the new CBA being done in time, which I think will happen. But talk about Carlos Correa. Have we seen the last of him in Houston?
I think we have. I think we have, and it's not because of a cheating scandal, but I think he kind of, I think knows that his time has kind of come and passed in Houston. Maybe he does go in fact go somewhere else, though, but certainly I know, of course, that we're going to remember 2017. But a guy who I think, stuck with that organization like Altuve did too because of the losing seasons and all that sort of stuff, though. And I think he still has a lot to. I think he has a lot though to still offer. I mean, he's great defender, big hits in big situations and things like that. So I mean, who really knows what happens though? I think that James said it right though that Correa spoke like he was leaving Houston. So who really knows, Loro, what might really happen?
Do you think he goes to the Tigers to reunite with his boy AJ Hinch?
Oh, and I think that the Tigers could use a big name. I think that AJ Hinch kind of helped guide that team back in the right direction. Young, scrappy ball club in Detroit, though. That honestly would be kind of intriguing if that actually happens.
It is. I think the Tigers are definitely going to be one of these teams that I think is going to be aggressive, and I think that there's going to be teams that I think the Tigers are definitely have high expectations heading into next season. And what about the Blue Jays? Nobody's talked about them.
Man, the Blue Jays are one of my favorite teams to watch when they're on TV. Kevin Biggio, Vlad Jr., just...
I don't think Simeon's going to be back there.
I don't know about that either. Bo Bichette also. They're a young, fun team to watch. They remind me a lot of the Padres. They are the AO version of the Padres. Young team, fun to watch, full of energy, always playing the game hard, having fun out there. Yeah, having a chip on their shoulder in a good way. And, I think having George Springer there is a huge thing though too in center field for Toronto. And certainly I think that Charlie Montoya is a great manager though too. I mean, they are extremely fun to watch. Like I said, I love watching the Jays play whenever they're on TV, believe me.
Yeah, I want to see what the Blue Jays... I think what the Blue Jays need is, they need a left-handed second baseman. I think they need to find a left-handed second baseman to complement that lineup. And I think that George Springer is definitely good. But also, Christy wants to know, what about the Red Sox? Do you think that we could see Kyle Schwarber stay there?
Honestly, I think he might, Christy. I think with him declining his option, he may try to restructure and stay there. I mean, this guy was hitting the cover off the ball in the postseason. I think that Boston, surprised a lot of people. I know that, Evaldi, solid starter, or as a swingman in the bullpen. Alex Verdugo stepped up so much in the postseason this year.
Oh my
Schwarber, Rodriguez.
Talk about my man, Kike Hernandez.
Kike Hernandez, they were also a great group of guys to watch this season. And I mean, sadly, they just happened to get out homered by the Astros in the ALCS, sadly, which kind of sucked. But I mean, if that core stays together next season, that's going to be a fun group to watch with Verdugo, Schwarber, Renfroe, Kike Hernandez, Rafael Devers, Xander Bogaerts. I mean, 7 guys right there. That's a very good, 1 through 7, not in that order for them, but certainly, Christy, Boston is going to be a fun group to watch again next season. Mark my words.
They are. I mean, the AL East as a whole is going
to be... That whole division, sadly, and Baltimore, I mean... I think that they do have a couple of young stars like Ryan Mountcastle and Anthony Santander. But I mean, Tampa's good, Boston, the Yanks, Toronto. I mean, that's a very, very, very fun competitive division to watch next season.
I think the AL Central's the worst division in baseball. There's only one team.
Chicago made a mockery of that division this year. My goodness.
Yeah, I think the Tigers are definitely going to be the second best team in that division. I think, or as early as 2022.
Yeah, I mean, the Tigers, I think, could get up there. The Royals are kind of stuck in the mud right now a bit. I love Whit Merrifield, though, and how he plays the game. Twins kind of at a crossroads right now. They had the whole Bomba squad a couple years ago, and then, of course, that got them nowhere in the postseason, sadly. The Guardians, the whole name change and the whole rebranding. Is Terry Francona going to come back and manage next season? Will they deal off more pieces? I don't know, though. I mean, I think the White Sox are going to kind of be like the Dodgers and kind of rule that division for the next several years.
Yes, and then talk about Nick Castellanos opting out of the Reds. How does this affect the Reds? And what do you think about the chances of Nick Castellanos staying with the Reds on a new deal, or do you think he goes back to Chicago, goes to the Brewers, or does he go with an American League team?
I think he'd be another maybe a guy in San Diego again. His name's kind of been thrown around there with the Padres as well in some rumors. But the Reds are also building something nice. Jonathan India, great player. A lot of guys who you probably didn't know about, but they just grinded all season, and they were jockeying with the Padres for so long before both teams fizzled out, though. But and I think though more than anything else, though, they've got the right guy though in David Bell. Fiery manager, always is going to go out there and get the best out of his guys, though. But I love India. Their rotation could use a bit more depth, maybe. Of course, them losing DeSclafani over the offseason to the Giants really hurt them, I think, in their rotation. But certainly, them also losing Tucker Barnhart, one of their catchers. But the Reds, though, I think, with India and, Joey Votto, of course, being, Mr. Red there for a long time, with him playing there for his whole career, that I think they're going to be good, though. But their division, I think, is pretty damn competitive, though. Milwaukee, St. Louis, the Reds, the Cubs even, and teams like that. So, I mean, who really knows, though? It's going to be fun to watch.
It is. And also, talk about Albert Pujols. My question for you is, does he stay with the Dodgers to kind of help the young team out, or does he want to play with Yachty and Waino one last time?
I feel like it's St. Louis or bust. I really do. I think with Yachty and Waino coming back, the prospect of him going back home to St. Louis, I think it happens. And I think that we all as baseball fans want to see this happen. Especially as baseball fans, because Albert has been a true face of the game, a true ambassador, a fan favorite. Whether you are a Cardinal fan or not, Angel fan or not, Dodger fan or not, I think you have loved watching Albert Pujols play. I always have loved Albert Pujols. And yes, he killed the Padres in the postseason in 2005 and 2006. But again, you learn to respect greatness when you see it, though. And also what Albert has done, though, not just in the game, though, but off the field with, the Special Olympics and his foundation and what he means to the game. And with Yadier coming back and Waino coming back, I mean, I sign me up. I want to see this, I want to see Albert go back to St. Louis.
I'm not ruling him out returning to the Dodgers, because I feel like that with the universal DH coming, I would move Justin Turner as the Dodgers' primary DH, because he keeps getting hurt out there at third base. I know if you would agree with me on that, because I really think that my man Edwin Rios, he is going to tear it up next year.
I think he will, as long as he's healthy.
Are you talking about JT or Edwin Rios?
Both.
Yeah, because Edwin Rios can swing the bat, but he just has battled shoulder injuries. I saw that he was starting to swing a bat in the cage. I feel like that the universal DH comes, you got to give Edwin Rios a chance at third base and move Justin Turner as the Dodgers' primary DH.
Especially with the injuries and with his age, I agree.
That's what I think. That's how I view Justin Turner. I still view Justin Turner as a big part of the Dodgers organization for quite a long time.
Oh, same. I mean, and for the Dodgers to be able to get him and Taylor and turn them into superstars, though, is just amazing.
And going back to the Albert Pujols situation with St. Louis, I think that with the universal DH coming, I would expect him to be the Cardinals' primary DH, because you got Goldschmidt at first, you got Arenado at third. I don't know what they're going to do with Matt Carpenter, though.
Carpenter's a guy who I think maybe his production's gone down, maybe this has happened, that's happened. But I think he still has a chance to play. Though Tommy Edman, another one of my former teammates out there who I played with and against here in San Diego, that is, he's another guy that I think is fun to watch. And I think that sadly that Tom has kind of taken playing time away from Matt Carpenter because of his leadoff ability and his glove mainly. Maybe Matt Carpenter does move out. Who knows?
Yeah, I kind of, Tommy Edman is a switch hitter because the Cardinals they have some good left-handed bats, but two of those guys are switch hitters in Tommy Edman and Dylan Carlson, who I think is probably going to be one of the leading candidates for National League Rookie of the Year.
Big time. And Carlson's got a great glove, too.
Yeah, so where would you put Pujols in the lineup if he signs with the Cardinals, if he's the DH for them?
I mean, if he's DHing, maybe fifth. I mean, I think you're going to go with Edman leading off. Maybe Carlson.
I would put Carlson third, just because I want a right-handed bat number 2. Would that be Goldschmidt? Would that be DeYoung if he stays?
If I was to put one out, I would go Edman leading off. I'd put Carlson hitting second if he's switch hitting. Goldschmidt hitting third, Yadier cleaning up, then Pujols hitting fifth.
What about Nolan Arenado?
And that's kind of where I think where things get hairy. Does he hit sixth? Does he hit third? I think with just so much depth on, kind of in a way like depth on their roster, I think you can kind of afford to have Arenado hit sixth maybe or seventh, maybe add some protection at the bottom half of the order. So who knows?
I'm looking forward to watching Yadier's final season with the Cardinals. And I really think that every team should plan on giving him gifts, making it special for him, especially for the Cardinals. And of course. I'm not ruling out Albert coming back to the Dodgers. I'm not saying he's going to want to return to the Dodgers, but what I'm saying is that I feel like that he wants to return to St. Louis because the fans want to see him with Waino and Molina one more time, and I think all three of them are going to retire together.
I agree. So I agree. All three can ride off into the sunset together.
What if they win one more World Series ring together?
That's the ultimate cherry on top to go out.
Would that happen?
Reminds me of David Beckham winning MLS Cup with the Galaxy in 2014 when he retired.
Could that happen? It could, but honestly, I don't think with the roster that the Cardinals have, they could beat the Dodgers.
I don't think so. They may have to get some more pitching depth for that to happen.
Yeah, they don't have enough pitching. I mean, they have Jack Flaherty, who's their ace. They have Adam Wainwright.
Though, too.
Jack Flaherty, I think, is going to bounce back next year. I also think teams that are not expected to make big moves this offseason are the Nationals, the Marlins, the Rockies, and the Diamondbacks, the Orioles, the Twins. They have Donaldson, but they got to find a way to get him out of there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you have to look around maybe at like Sano maybe being moved or some other big name out there. Maybe Rocco Baldelli does get fired eventually or something like that. But yeah, I mean, if teams like Arizona or Washington make any type of move, it may be like something very small, perhaps, sadly. What
about the Rangers?
I don't know, man. I mean, they are a very interesting ball club right now, to say the least. I mean, they dealt Gallo away. They dealt Ian Kennedy away and Kyle Gibson away, like mini fire sale. I mean, who really knows what direction that ball club is going to go next season?
Looking forward to what this offseason brings, but it's now time for some final thoughts. Thank you for filling in for Isaiah for the last minute of the show on the baseball side of things. Definitely needed you for that. So what are your final thoughts here?
Not much. Thanks for letting me hop on board and kind of help out in some small capacity and all the goods going around. And always good to talk some baseball, though, too, especially during the offseason when we're all bored waiting for baseball to come back.
Yes, my final thoughts is I'm looking forward to having the universal DH to the National League. I think it's going to benefit a lot of teams. I think it's going to be good for the game of baseball. I think that's going to be in the new CBA, and I also think that we might see a bit of a change in the playoff picture.
Maybe. We'll see. I think that a lot of people liked the NBA style 1 through 8, but we'll see what they choose to do. Maybe they add one more team in. Who knows? But again, it's all for them to discuss and hopefully iron out before the deadline comes and goes.
We have a lot of time for that. I'm confident and optimistic about it. I want the Dodgers to focus on getting some really good pieces to add to our ball club in the offseason. And I think that the Dodgers are going to be a really good baseball team this year. And then my Lakers, however, I think you said the Lakers are old, man.
That team scares me when I watch them play. It's just like, no, like I said, this reminds me too much of the team from 2012-13 that had Nash and Dwight and Gasol and Kobe on it.
What about, and also I'm looking forward to some football games this weekend. So are the Patriots in for a big playoff run?
We'll see. I mean, I think that, Mac Jones is certainly intriguing to watch. And I mean, then again, I don't know. I mean, we'll really see, and we'll see how they bounce back though after last season, though, for sure.
Absolutely. So for Isaiah Leon, Callum McClurg, and our producer, Stephen Wang, Loro signing off for now. We'll see you again on Sunday for the Extra Point, and also new episode of Wild Sports Talk tomorrow with myself and Adam Barber and Isaiah Leon. Have a great night, everyone.